You sit with something you know matters. A project. A relationship. Your own becoming. Yet there's a distance between knowing and feeling, between intellectual understanding and genuine care. You go through the motions, you show up, you try, but the fire isn't there. The passion that should animate your efforts remains dormant, leaving you hollow and confused. Why can't you just care? Why does it feel like you're watching yourself live rather than truly living? This gap between knowledge and feeling is where most people get stuck. They believe the problem is motivation, discipline, or willpower. They think if they try harder, push more forcefully, they'll ignite that spark. But trying harder at apathy only deepens the numbness. The real problem isn't that you're broken or lazy. It's that you've become disconnected from something fundamental about the way caring actually works. Caring isn't something you manufacture through force of will. It emerges from the ground of your being when certain conditions are met. Most of us were never taught what those conditions are. We were taught to achieve, to optimize, to extract value. But we were rarely taught the art of genuine attention, the kind that moves from your head down into your chest, into your hands, into your actual lived experience. That's where we begin. Not with strategies or motivation hacks, but with understanding why caring has become so difficult in the first place. The modern world is built to extract your attention while destroying your capacity for care. You live in a system designed by engineers and psychologists who've studied exactly how to trigger your dopamine response, to keep you scrolling, clicking, consuming. Every notification is a small hook. Every app is a gilded trap. Your attention, the one resource you actually own, is being harvested and sold. This isn't accidental. It's the operating system you've inherited. But here's what most people miss. The problem isn't external noise. The noise only has power because you've already lost connection to what's inside. A person who genuinely cares about something cannot be moved by endless distraction. Not because they have superhuman discipline, but because their attention is already committed elsewhere. You've likely inverted this. You think you need to eliminate distractions first, then caring will follow. The truth is inverted. Care creates focus naturally. A mother doesn't need willpower to stay attentive to her child. A musician obsessed with their craft doesn't need discipline to practice. Their care generates the focus. So why has your care withdrawn? Partly it's the noise, yes. But more fundamentally, you've been taught to doubt your own desires. You've learned that what you genuinely want is naive, selfish, or impossible. So you've stopped listening to yourself. You've become a stranger to your own depth. The disconnection happened gradually, through 1,000 small moments of compromise, each one reasonable in isolation. But cumulatively, you've erased yourself. Reconnecting to care means going back to that source. There's a mechanism at work here that nobody talks about. It's the relationship between attention and reality. What you pay attention to becomes real to you. Not metaphorically, quite literally. The neurons that fire together wire together. The circuitry of your brain physically reorganizes around where you focus. This is why you can live in the same room as someone you love and feel utterly alone. Your attention is elsewhere. And this is also why, when you finally look at something directly, truly look, it comes alive. It has substance. It claims you. This is what your culture has stolen from you, the knowledge that you create your own world through the quality of your attention. Instead, you've been sold the idea that reality is fixed and objective, that your inner experience is irrelevant, that caring about things is a luxury you can't afford. So you've learned to pay attention the way you were told to. To facts, to productivity metrics, to what others validate. And those things have become real for you, painfully, exhaustingly real. But the things that actually make you feel alive? Those you've learned to ignore as impractical, indulgent, or naive. This is the deepest betrayal. You've taught yourself not to see the things worth seeing. Not because they're not there, but because you decided they don't matter. The mechanism is simple. Whatever has your attention has your life. You cannot care for what you refuse to look at. You cannot love what you won't observe. So the first real movement toward caring isn't striving or force. It's returning your gaze to what actually moves you. Here's the insight that changes everything. you're not actually incapable of caring. You're afraid of what caring requires. Care demands vulnerability. It asks you to admit that something matters to you, which means something can be lost. It requires you to invest energy without guaranteed returns. It means you might fail, or be rejected, or discover you're not as capable as you hoped. These are terrifying things. So at some deep level, you've made a trade. You've numbed yourself to the pain of not caring in order to avoid the pain of caring and potentially losing. It feels safer. Caring about nothing means nothing can hurt you. But this safety is a tomb. The price of avoiding pain is forfeiting joy, meaning, purpose, everything that makes life feel worth living. You're not lazy or broken. You're actually quite rational from the inside. The numbness is a sophisticated defense mechanism. It protected you once. Perhaps you cared deeply and were let down. Perhaps you tried hard and failed publicly. Perhaps you were told your dreams were stupid. So you learned to care less. To protect yourself. But that armor was useful then. It's a prison now. You've been waiting for inspiration to strike, for circumstances to change, for some external catalyst to make you care again. But the real work is in recognizing that the distance between you and caring is just fear. Not the fear of failure itself. The fear of mattering. The fear of being someone who cares deeply. Because once you admit something matters to you, you can unknow it. You become responsible. You become vulnerable. And that's the only path that leads anywhere real. The shift begins when you stop trying to care and start giving yourself permission to care. This sounds simple, but it's radical. It means looking at the things that actually interest you, not what you think should interest you, not what's practical or impressive or will look good on a resume. The things that make you lose track of time. The things you think about when no one's watching. The things you secretly envy other people for having or doing. These aren't distractions from your real life. They are your real life trying to speak to you. Most people dismiss these impulses as impractical. They think, I can't build a life around that. And they're right, not because the impulse is stupid, but because they're approaching it wrong. You don't build a life around caring. Caring builds your life. The moment you stop resisting what actually moves you, everything changes. Your energy returns. Your attention becomes yours again. You start to notice things you've been blind to. People sense the shift in you. Opportunities appear that weren't there before, not because the world changed, but because you're finally looking at it with your eyes open. This isn't optimism or positive thinking. It's what happens when you align your actions with your actual values instead of inherited ones. It's what happens when you give yourself permission to be someone who cares. The resistance will still arise. The voice that says this is selfish, impractical, impossible. But now you can recognize it for what it is, not wisdom, but fear. Fear that has protected you, but no longer serves. You're beginning to understand, caring is not weak. Caring is the most powerful force you possess. The transformation isn't sudden. It's gradual, almost imperceptible at first. You start small. You commit to one thing that actually matters to you. Not forever. Not perfectly. Just now. You show up. You pay attention. You notice what happens when you do. Your nervous system begins to remember what engagement feels like. Your mind begins to trust that your desires might actually be worth following. Over time, as you do this again and again, something fundamental reorganizes inside you. You become someone who cares. Not because you force yourself, but because you stop pretending not to. This is how the psychology of caring actually works. It's not about finding motivation or building discipline. It's about removing the obstacles you've placed between yourself and what you already want. It's about recognizing that the numbness was never your true nature. It was a survival strategy that outlived its usefulness. As you reclaim the capacity to care, your entire relationship with life changes. Work becomes meaningful because you're doing it for reasons you actually believe in. Relationships deepen because you're truly present. Your days have weight. You matter, and what you do with your time matters. This is not about constant euphoria or perfect passion. It's about genuine engagement. It's about being alive instead of going through the motions. You came into this world knowing how to care. You cared about warmth, about attention, about being seen. That capacity was never removed. It was only buried under layers of protection. The work now is excavation. It's patient, humble archaeology of your own soul. And the good news is simple: you're still in there. The one who cares. And you're waiting to be called back home.